Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Calls. This is the 2024 FedEx St. Jude initial research show. First off, we're going to start off with a shout out. Congratulations to Pop's Call, who had the Aaron Wright outright this week. That is 2 weeks in a row for winners for Pop's Call. So he is on a bit of a heater. For yours truly, another very successful week. No Aaron Wright outright, but a lot of JJ Spawn. Sung Jae, who played well, backed up a little bit on Sunday on the 36 rounds. But Ben Griffin played very well. So lots of solid success for yours truly as well, especially in terms of DFS, where I had a lineup that 20x'd its entry. So again, just a very solid week. And wanted to make sure I started off the show with the shout out of the Aaron Wright outright for Pop's Call. So congratulations. And we turn our attention forward to the St. Jude, the start of the PGA Tour playoffs. So we're arriving here with a little bit of momentum here at the channel. Looking forward to it. It's going to be a little bit of a shorter show, as I've had a very, very busy, very good, but very busy weekend. And the top 70 is not loaded into Fantasy National, or at least not the exact top 70 yet. And as we go through tonight and through the week, I will explain why, even though TPC Southwind has been seen quite a bit, I actually don't have a lot of course history for it. And I'll explain why throughout the show and later on this week, or throughout the week, I should say, as well. So let's get right into it. All statistics provided tonight and every night are from FantasyNational.com. It is the best golf analytic tool out there for your money. It's going to give you the power at your fingertips to have the Aaron Wright outrights, the JJ Spawn, all the JJ Spawn plays, Ben Griffins, and all of that. Anything data, golf data-wise you can imagine, it allows you to slice and dice and split up the data however you want. It's a very powerful tool. Will not be able to do what I do without it. So go check out FantasyNational.com. You will not regret it. In the description of the video, there are links to all the social media. First off, X and Instagram, where normally I place research for the week's tournament on those two sites. Don't think I'll be doing too much of that tomorrow, although I generally start that process later this evening and into tomorrow morning. But if you want to see usually the weekly research that I do on the PGA Tour, give me a follow at your preferred social media site. X is also where I place my weekly betting cards and my top player usage in the DFS contest I play. You would have seen all of the JJ Spawn I played. The Sung Jae, who was in literally 100% of my lineups, didn't turn out the best, but it was okay. The Siwoo Kims, who did not play very well. The Webb Simpsons and all that. So if you want to see the weekly research that I do, if you want to see the players that I use most often in my DFS lineups and my betting card every week, give me a follow over at X. Lastly, for social media, Gabe's handle is in the description. He writes a great article called The Fringe. It's a great way to start your week of preparation. And if you are a subscriber to his article, you're going to be able to join us in his Substack chat every Wednesday night as we continue the DFS talk over there. We talk about game theory, favorite areas of the price board. It's very informative, very entertaining. I love going over there. He is very gracious enough to host a chat, hosts me over there as well. So if you are not subscribed to his article, you're really missing out. Make sure you are doing that, and you're going to be able to join us in his chat if you do. The article is free to subscribe to, by the way. So make sure you're doing that and follow him over on social media. Lastly, we are live. Chat's open. I want to hear from you all. Did you have any success for the Wyndham Championship? I want to hear about any of that. I want to hear your thoughts on the top 70 who are moving on into the playoffs for the PGA Tour. How much do you know of TPC Southwind? All of that good stuff. So let's do our initial research for the 2024 FedEx St. Jude. And we will start, as we always do, in our week and on Sunday evenings with the GCSA tournament fact sheet. Now, you will notice that this is last year's tournament fact sheet Once again, we do not have a GCSA tournament fact sheet out yet. If that happens to come out tomorrow, I will certainly lead the show off with that. But we'll take a look at last year's TBC Southwind. We are in Memphis, Tennessee, of course, for the FedEx St. Jude. This is an original Ron Pritchard design, and you see no extensive renovations or restorations listed, so has been pretty consistent in terms of how it plays when it's been seen on the PGA Tour. Let's see. TPC Southwind is a medium length par 70. Right at 7,250 yards, maybe a few yards less. But par 70, pretty difficult. Pretty difficult. And a lot of that difficulty comes here in the size of these greens. 4,300 square feet. Some of the smallest greens on tour. Not quite to the level of Harbor Town or Pebble Beach. But these are very small greens. Do not be mistaken. These greens are difficult to hit. And a lot of the difficulty also comes in with 11 holes with water in play and very, very narrow fairways. Very narrow fairways. Only 22 acres of fairways, in fact. I'm sure Memphis has gotten a little bit of the remnants from Hurricane Debbie, but we will start looking at forecast and all of that starting tomorrow. But overall, TBC Southwind generally is pretty darn difficult. We are on Champion Bermuda again. This is the same exact surface type that was listed for the Wyndham last week, and is also at the Country Club of Jackson, the Sanderson Farms, which is part of the FedEx Fall portion of the schedule now. So we could take a look at some specific courses if we would like. Normally, just kind of sticking to Bermuda. And we are on Zoysia in the fairways and Bermuda in the rough. A couple of notes here. This spring, the course finished its fairway to Zion Zoysia. The course was dumped with a bunch of rain throughout much of July. Hey, good evening, Darnell. Thanks for jumping in chat. How was your Wyndham this week? How was your weekend in general? Glad to see you this evening. And are you ready, or how do you feel about moving into the PGA Tour playoffs with the top 70? So it's good to see you this evening. I'm saved by Aaron, Ryan, Spawn. Triple up with 4 of 6. Good deal. Good deal. Mine was solid. I did not have the Aaron Rye outright. Didn't play him all that much because I knew he was popular. I had tons and tons and tons of JJ Spawn, who really wasn't all that popular, to my surprise and to my delight. Plenty of JJ Spawn, plenty of Ben Griffin, who played very well. It was a very solid week. I had one lineup that 20x'd its entry. You're never going to complain about that. So, solid week. Certainly could have been better, considering I had 100% Sung Jae in my lineups, and he kind of fell back Sunday, playing 36 holes on Sunday. But, overall, we'll absolutely take it, considering I only really had 1 or 2 6 of 6 lineups. I really thought my Wyndham Championship was going to be pretty bad when the cut happened yesterday, and turned out to be, fairly solid. So glad to hear you had success as well, and we're coming into the playoffs with some momentum on the channel. If you missed the intro, Pop's call hit the Aaron Rye outright, so he's got 2 winners in a row, hitting Scotty Scheffler at the Olympics mid-tournament when he had fallen behind, and then had the Aaron Rye outright this week. So he's on a mini heater. So yeah, let's take it down. If we're not going to hit the outright, we're gonna try to find the right players to use throughout DFS. But there's a look at TBC Southwind in terms of a GCSA tournament fact sheet. Again, pretty difficult course. Pretty difficult, although it did not play that way last year. Granted, it was the top 70 players in the FedEx Cup last year, so a much stronger field, but pretty difficult. Ron Pritchard design, so nothing to do with Architect, at least in terms of filters in Fantasy National. Very, very tiny, small greens. Can't say tiny because that's reserved for Harbor Town and Pebble Beach, but very small greens, very narrow fairways with quite a bit of water in play. So scoring will not be the best here. And we are on Champion Bermuda greens, the same green surface that was listed for the Wyndham, also the Country Club of Jackson. So we'll see if we want to use the specific green filter or just look at Bermuda. There's a look at the GCSA Tournament fact sheet. We will move to Fantasy National. And again, this was loaded in a little bit earlier today, so this will not have the exact 70 that made the playoffs, but it will give us a decent enough idea as to who is in the field this week, who's been playing well, and all of that. So let's look at, just to kind of the past 3 months, get a feel for, at least on the PGA Tour, who's been playing the best. So in the past 24 rounds, your top performers are Xander, Scotty, Rory, Colin Morikawa, Sungjae, Davis Thompson, Aaron Rai, Corey Connors, Tony Finau, and Shane Lowry. Hopefully you avoided all of the Shane Lowry, as I figured that was going to be a pretty easy fade. However, I was really high on Siwoo, and he missed the cut too, so good and bad there. Before we get into too much, I just kind of want to go through the course breakdown and the historic conditions here in Fantasy National, get a feel for TPC Southwind, especially since this is only the second year it has been a 70-man field. So we go to the course breakdown here at here at Fantasy National for TPC Southwind, and right off the bat, the first thing that I notice is that the first hole plays to right at par, but it's the 12th most difficult, which means there are not a lot of great scoring opportunities around TPC Southwind. The two par 5s are your two best. Par 5 third plays to a quarter of a shot under par, and you have the par 5 16th, which plays to a half a shot under par. And a decent eagle rate here, 3%, 1.5 on the lone par 5 on the front. But other than that, not a lot of great scoring opportunities. Not a lot. I mean, the third easiest hole plays to a tenth of a shot under par. We'll have a few hundredths in and around here. Whereas if you go to the other end of the spectrum, a quarter of a shot over par here on the par 4 fifth, 15 hundredths, 17 hundredths, 13 hundredths, just quite a few bogeys. Maybe not necessarily doubles, with the exception of maybe 14 and 18, which I'm pretty sure both of them have water in play on those holes. But lots of bogeys, 27%, 21%, 23.5%. So lots and lots of bogeys here around TPC Southwind. Not a lot of great scoring opportunities by any means. And whatever length is in the course, there are some long par 4s here. Par 4, 485, 482, 457, 465, 472. Some long, difficult par 4s. Par 4, 505. Long, difficult par 4s make up the majority of holes here at TPC Southwind. We move to average strokes gained by shot type for our top 10s, 5s, and winners. You can see with all of that water in play, you've got to be good with the irons. Bogey avoidance this week, that would be my assumption starting the week. But as we've seen throughout this year, a lot of times it can matter about birdies gained when it's difficult too. But yes, my assumption going into the week would be bogey avoidance. But yeah, approach. Of course, if you're performing well, you're generally making putts. But around the green is going to matter, I think, a little bit, considering how tiny these greens are. The off the tee has a decent advantage over the around the green for the top 10s. We go to the top 5s. I know it doesn't look it, but the around the green does start to rise a little bit, try to catch that off the tee, but you're still having to hit irons very, very well to compete around TPC Southwind. And for our winners, again, just look at all the iron play. You would think putting would rise significantly for winners. It really doesn't. It's the guys who are dialed in with their irons. In fact, the off the tee tries to distance itself away from the around the green as well for the winners. I still think your around the green is going to have a decent factor. Again, these greens are very small. They're going to get missed. So around the green play is going to have some amount of importance this week. And it'll be up to us to determine how much. But you can't stress it enough. You've seen it for the winners. Again, for your top 5s, for your top 10s. You have got to hit your irons well here to compete around TPC Southwind. Moving to strokes gained by hole by par. As you would expect with only 2 par 5s, there's not a lot to be gained there. So really, your top end performers are more so gaining in 3s and 4s. Yes, the par 5s are still technically the highest strokes gained, but this is very minuscule compared to the 3s and 4s. Move to the top 5s. You see the par 5s are actually the least of the 3 different holes by par. Par 3s actually lead for your top 5 finishers. And then for your winners, they're probably getting an eagle on the par 5 16th every once in a while. But it's pretty even. And again, for your top 5s, they're playing these par 3s pretty well. Of course, they're playing the par 4s well. So there's not a lot to be gained in those par 5s. So we're going to have a decent amount of look here this week in terms of 3s and 4s as well. We move down to hole composition. A couple of short par 3s here. 150 to 175, of course, protected by water. Medium length, 1 medium length par 3, 1 long par 3. We do have a short, I do not believe drivable, and just being transparent, FedEx TPC Southwind doesn't come immediately to mind as I'm picturing it. We do have a short 401, and we have a 395. So again, I do not believe it's drivable, as we only see a 10th eagle rate. But short par 4, a few shorter ones, 400 to 450. But again, the majority, 6 of the 12, half of your par 4s fall between 450 and 500. We do have that one extremely long par 4 17th at 505. And then the 2 par 5s are evenly split on either side of 550, one below 550, one above 550. Approach shot distribution, much like the Wyndham, a lot of approaches coming from 150 to 175. And in fact, several coming from 175 to 200 as well, at least compared to the average PGA Tour event. So lots of longer clubs in these players' hands, knowing that the fairways are extremely narrow. Players generally aren't the most aggressive off the tee here. So they're leaving themselves with, some longer clubs into these greens. So we'll have to see starting tomorrow just how much we want to put an emphasis into long approach shots. Historic cut line here. You see the cut line was stopped in 2022 because last year it became the first playoff event with no cut. Obviously, and that'll be the same this week with no cut in the top 70. Cut line got all the way down to -1 in 2022, but hovered generally in this +2 range. You see it got as high as +6 in the late 2000 aughts. Just not an easy course by any means. It did get gradually easier through the decade, especially into the 2000 teens. And last year it played easy because we had the top 70 here and with no cut and all that. But to highlight this difficulty, you do have a few more birdies than bogeys, about 17.5% birdies to 16% bogeys. But look at this doubles bar. This is a very, very big doubles bar, and that Eagles bar is non-existent. So you total all the scores that are over par with the scores that are under par. There are actually more scores over par than under here at TPC Southwind, at least historically. Driving accuracy, much less here than the average tour event. Distance is higher. So I would have thought players were laying up off the tee. The statistics are suggesting that they aren't, which I don't think that would be a sound strategy, considering you see how difficult these greens are to hit. Only 59.5%, so not even 60% greens hit in regulation here. But at least in terms of statistics, it seems like players are hitting or being aggressive off the tee, and I don't know if I would agree with that. Now, scrambling is easier here than the average tour event. 3 putts per round are not nearly as many as the average tour event. That can be contributed due to the small greens. Players just aren't that far away from the hole if they're hitting the green in proximity, and you can see that here, 25 feet average proximity versus 29 and a quarter. So there's a look at TPC Southwind in terms of a scorecard and graphical view. Before we go back to the players in the field this week, let's check the historic conditions. And again, I'll emphasize, this was the first playoff event last year, so it's going to play. It played easy. The wind also stayed down. Before it became a playoff event, you see it played average in 2022. Let's see. This is going back to the first playoff event. So that's not going to help us much. We could look at the WGC FedEx St. Jude. There it is. So we can look at the WGC St. Jude. You have a few rounds that were difficult, even as a WGC. Mostly played to average, sure. But not a birdie fest here by any means. By any means. So, like you mentioned or questioned, Darnell, my initial thought was to go to bogey avoidance, but that's why we'll dig into things tonight, and especially tomorrow on the data dive when we check out the course, some deep dive statistics on the course. We'll see if the bogey avoidance is what we will look at. Green speeds here generally fast, does touch lightning on occasion. I meant to look at that here. So yeah, just fast from 2019, 2020, and 2021. So we're looking at fast, maybe lightning, Bermuda, depending on how well it dries out this week. Again, that is an assumption on my end that I'm sure they have dealt with some remnants from Hurricane Debbie, but I really don't know. So we move back to the players in the field this week, and we're gonna go straight to approach. Look, it was very apparent from the course breakdown how well players have to be hitting their irons here to compete. So in the past 3 months, your top approach players in the field this week: Scotty, Tony Finau, Xander, Ben Griffin, Colin Morikawa, Corey Connors, Tom Hoagie, Brian Harmon, Rory, and Sepp Straka. Now, if some of these players aren't in or missed the playoffs due to their performance at the Wyndham, don't get mad. This was loaded into Fantasy National earlier, and it will be correct by the time we get to tomorrow. We're just trying to get an idea this evening on maybe who to think about this week, hence why it's called an initial research. With that, we'll take a look, a stronger look at off the tee and around the green tomorrow. Let's just kind of look at some Bermuda putting. So we'll take a look at Bermuda. It's safe to go with only fast. I am going to include the lightning because we did see one round of lightning putting last year. So on greens that are on Bermuda greens, let's get this right, on Bermuda greens that are labeled fast or lightning. Your top putters in the past 2 years. Let's do 2 years or 36 rounds. Your top putters have been Wyndham Clark on fast or lightning Bermuda. He had that very good performance at the Players. The Arnold Palmer, he putt very well on. And those are always lightning Bermuda. Waste Management, he putt well, so it's a little bit of a surprise to me. But fast lightning Bermuda, Wyndham Clark is your number one putter in the field this week. Mav McNeely, Sahith Theegala, Russell Henley, Ben Griffin, Alex Noren, Matt Fitzpatrick, Seabez, Christian Bezuidenhout, Brendan Todd, and Taylor Moore. If we want to just look at fast, which I think it's probably fair to assume that since majority of the rounds here are fast. On just fast Bermuda greens, Wyndham Clark, Alex Noren, Brendan Todd, Taylor Moore, Russell Henley, Billy Horschel, Matt McNeely, Sam Burns, Denny McCarthy, and Sahith Theegala. It's going to be a little bit of a shorter show because, like I mentioned, I do not have any early look file this evening. Not a lot of course history for the way I collect course history. So let's dig in a little bit more, and we'll dig in with this putting. We will start with the Country Club of Jackson, which is the host of the Sanderson Farms, but it is also listed as Champion Bermuda. Sedgefield, of course, where we were last week for the Wyndham Championship. Sedgefield and TPC Southwind, where we are this week for the FedEx St. Jude. Let's apply those course filters on specifically Champion Bermuda. In the past 2 years, I would not go crazy with this. It's a much smaller sample size, but on Champion Bermuda, on specifically Champion Bermuda, in the past 2 years, your top putters have been Thomas Dietrich, Tom Kim, Alex Noren, Christian Bezuidenhout, Eric Cole, Brendan Todd, Billy Horschel, Ben Griffin, Taylor Moore, Tommy Fleetwood, and Sung Jae. Those are your top 11, just due to ties. Let's go to par fours. Specifically par fours, 450 to 500. Actually, 400 to 450 as well. So we're going to include the entirety of the 2024 season. And yeah, let's do all rounds. Only because not every course has multiple par fours that are 400 to 450 or 450 to 5. They all play different. So let's just get a feel for the players who have performed best throughout the entire year at these two specific ranges of par fours, considering 10 of the 12 fall between 400 and 500 yards. So on the shorter end of that that grouping, 400 to 450, your top par four performers: Scotty Scheffler, Seabez, Brian Harman, Colin Morikawa, Russell Henley, Davis Thompson, Xander, Alex Noren, Cam Young, and Peter Malnati. And then the longer set, 450 to 5, Scotty Scheffler, Xander, Rory, Ludwig Aubert, Aaron Rai, Hideki, Colin Morikawa, Alex Noren, Max Grazerman, and Jordan Spieth. Again, don't get angry if these players ended up missing the playoffs. This is loaded in earlier today. It will be correct by tomorrow. Just put it in chat or put it in the comments if you know for a fact one of these players did not make the playoffs. But we're quickly approaching the end of the show, and I know it's going to be a much shorter one than usual. The reason being, when we go to this tournament history, the strokes gained total page view doesn't have last year's in it. It does not have last year's in it. In fact, it goes just to the WGC St. Jude. Doesn't go to the FedEx St. Jude from last year. And as we customarily do on Monday nights when we go through the Data Dive show, I'll take a look at the leaderboard, we'll focus on last year's since it was the first year of the playoffs when Lucas Glover beat Patrick Cantlay in a playoff. We'll go through the leaderboards here in a deep dive sense tomorrow. But again, just look at that emphasis on the iron play. So much shorter show this evening. No early look file, again, due to the fact that this has only been seen once in this formatting. Top set, the 70 players, no cut, all that stuff. So much shorter show, but I want to thank you for tuning in. Thanks to Darnell for jumping in chat. Thanks to everyone else out there who tunes in, watches, listens, supports the channel by liking the videos, commenting, and subscribing. I always appreciate it. Love what I do, taking an in-depth look at sports statistics, mainly golf statistics, but sports statistics, trying to give you what a statistician and data analyst sees from his perspective, and trying to help us all win a little bit of money in the process. It's been a pretty solid month in a row for me personally. Did not play the Olympics, took that week off, but pretty darn solid Wyndham. The Open Championship was very good. Had the outright at the Scottish with Bobby Mack. The 3M was exactly, I think, break even. So we're on a pretty good roll here at the channel. We're going to try to keep that going into the PGA and FedEx St. Jude, but the PGA playoffs. So thanks again for all the support, for all the wagers that you made this past week at the Wyndham, for all the DFS contests you played this past week at the Wyndham. And until I see you tomorrow night for the Data Dive show, may all your bets be profitable.